Testing 1, 2.
Good job.
Got it. And that's been discussed with Qualcomm?
Yes.
Okay.
all day.
Ready whenever you are.
Alright, we'll call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Flagler Beach City Commission. Today is Thursday, October 28, 2021. This is 5:30. Yep, 5:30. This meeting will be continued until all items are complete. We'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence to honor our veterans, members of the armed forces, and first responders.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, a little bit of housekeeping. If everybody can take a look at their cell phones and make sure they are on silent, vibrate, or powered off. And Mayor, do you have proclamations and no awards?
No.
Next item is deletions and changes to the agenda. Does anybody have any requests? Tennis pool? That's correct.
I just have to, I'm gonna add, some comments about the report.
Okay.
One comment.
Got it. So we are pulling 10, that is correct.
Yeah, 10 was the other come off.
And then you're gonna add comments about code enforcement under commission comments? Okay. Any other deletions or changes? All right, we'll go on public comment. Open this up, public comment. This is for members of the public to speak. Everybody has 3 minutes. You start with your name and address, and we ask that the audience doesn't have any reactions, positive or negative, to the speaker, so everybody can speak freely. And this is for any items that are not on the agenda. Anybody would like to come on up? Absolutely, come on up. You can start with your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Nancy Shuttle. I live at 1336 North Daytona, and I came to thank you guys because I finally got my information about the soil source.
Nice.
And I want to specifically say thank you to Al David and Amy Strober because they both have been communicating and promised to continue to communicate with me. So I just want to say thank you.
Oh,
Thank you. Anybody else? Can start with your name and address, please.
Still, because we're up 6 South Central. Nothing negative, but I got my shot. I wanted to see the meeting yesterday on TV, and unfortunately, it wasn't working well. I know they did the best they possibly could to get it working, but I sure missed the thing on the pier. However, I did read something today that apparently they're working on the concrete pier now. But apparently, the money was approved about 2016, was never gotten through till now. I'm just wondering what was the delay? Was it a 4-year or 5-year long delay in discussing the money that $10 million is supposed to be given us in 16 if we wanted to use it? Just curious if there's something that you can tell me about that.
Okay, and what we'll do is we'll get to all the answers at the end of the public comment period.
That sounds fine. Thank you.
Okay, absolutely. Anybody else have anything for public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. City manager, do you want to cover a little bit of background on just the pier and the history and how we got to where we are at?
Yes, sir. We are going to be putting together an extension request for FEMA. And in fact, they have the same question if we're going to have an extension. So we will be documenting that in the letter. It basically boils down to the fact that there were delays with the design of the project and the scope of the project, and then Irma hit, and then the COVID hit, and then the city manager passed away. So I think between all of those factors, it just delayed us moving forward. When I was hired to come on board, I discussed with the commission what we needed to do, and that was the number one thing they told me. So it's on the top of the list, and it took me a little while to piece together all of the information, because when you're dealing with FEMA, PA, public assistance monies, it's very complicated. You have to do things right. You have to do things in a very ordered sequence, and I wanted to make sure before we had recommendations or a workshop or a public discussion that we had all the facts available to us. And in fact, yesterday at the workshop, we had the Florida Department of Emergency Management on screen with us. So I feel very confident we've got all the information we need now to move forward, and I'm just playing catch up and the best I can.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. Okay. Next item, we have consent agenda. We have meeting minutes from October 14th, 2021. We have scope of service for non-beneficial service water discharge on this plan with the amount not to exceed $24,894. And then we have amendment 3 to the existing professional engineering services contract with CPH for the biological nutrient removal and capacity expansion improvements. Total contract price not to exceed $60,135. Does anybody have questions or want to pull on? None? Any good with that? City manager, do you want to speak to any of those before we motion?
We have we had a $900,000 loan agreement to do all the soft cost engineering, design work, all of the things for the treatment plant. And these actions were what I refer to being from Louisiana, spending time in New Orleans is running that, a little something extra, things that will help us get that job done better and faster. So we added that to the scope of work, and we're still within budget. So that's really all I have to say.
Now we'll do the consent agenda public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on items that are on consent agenda? That's item 6708. Seeing none, we'll close public comment.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda 678.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. All right, any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimous. All right, general business, resolution 2021-30.
Resolution 2021-30, a resolution by the City of Flagler Beach, Florida, repealing Resolution 2021-24, which amended Resolution 2016-17, which adopted building permit, inspection, and growth management technology fees, and amending Resolution 2012-46, which adopted zoning and land development permit fees, adopted new fee schedules for residential and commercial building permits, miscellaneous building permit fees, zoning and land development permit fees, and engineering permit fees as outlined in Exhibit A, providing for conflict and effective date.
Good.
I just had one procedural question. When we were going over the development code the other night, the places stuff there were fees that we said didn't belong in the code, but would be, so as those come out, we're gonna have to revise this. Yeah.
Yes, if they're not included, yes, but we think 99% of them are. So if something else comes up, we'll come back to you to address it.
I don't think too many of those things that we were singling out in the development code really contained the building. It was mostly fees for other, tree replacement and that sort of stuff. Fine kind of thing. So I don't think it's going to be much involved with the building.
If it is, then we just.
Yeah, that's correct.
I thought we were doing generic wording where we weren't using the hard number.
In the code, but somewhere we have to have a resolution that says this thing was this much.
And sometimes you may put a fee into your code. There may be a reason putting a fee into your code. I was just going to jump in and point out that I talked to Mr. Whitson either this week or last week. Before you get into your final process with that land development code, that's when I'll be going through it, and all the workshop tweaks are done, I'll be going through it, and one of the things I'll be looking for specifically is internal consistency. So that's one of the things I'll be looking for. So yes, I'll have an eye on that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Anybody else have any comments or questions? City manager, do you have anything you want to tackle on?
No, apologize that we had to put so much yellow in there, but we actually went through everything with a fine tooth comb and found out that some of the terms that we used internally were called something different in the first resolution, and we also synchronized it back to the DNA software, so that everything was good, so that whenever you pass this resolution, if that's your desire, that everything synchronizes up with the software that would actually implement the fees and everything, so we're good to go.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, it only makes sense that, computer recognizes the fee that you're inputting into it.
All right, we'll open this up for public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on item 9, resolution 2021-30? See no one, close public comment.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2021-30.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, and that's for the roll call right now.
Commissioner Bryan?
Yes.
Commissioner Belheimer?
Yes.
Commissioner Mealy?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Chair Cooley?
Yes, the motion. Motion passes unanimous. Item 10 has been moved. Item 11, we have application.
Staff reports, I think, Penny, we were 6 before we start public hearings still, right? Did that come out?
They changed.
I know we moved commission comments, did we take out the 6 o'clock part?
No, because I did not take about the 6 o'clock
We saw
part.
6 o'clock start.
Right,
public
you
hearings,
guys-
we jumped to staff report.
Right, you guys felt that meetings have been going longer. Well, of course, as soon as you change it, it doesn't.
Just your luck, huh?
Just is.
Well, we can jump to staff reports. Mayor Johnston, you want to?
Staff reports or commission reports? Commission comments is 15. Yeah, that was one of the things that we did do is move staff reports and sit front of commission comments.
This is all changed. Yeah.
So that staff, sometimes we answer questions you may have before you have to ask them.
Okay,
So if we're on staff reports, I will go.
all right.
You're up.
Real quick, on speaking of land development code, one of the things that got rolled into land development code was some tweaks to the sign code to address relatively recent now code, case law. With election season coming up in March, because one of the things I want to tweak in there deals with election signs. I would like to go ahead and try to get that in before the end of the year and not wait for LDC, and then we'll pull it forward into the LDC. It's a fairly small change. It changes the way that we deal with things that we call election signs, things that we call free speech signs, things that we call real estate signs, and lumping them into a category of temporary signs, and then basing the number that you might have on a property at any given time based on if there's an election going on, rather than a sign that has speech about the election, because that's where the Supreme Court kind of changed the rules and everybody agrees. So I'd like to go ahead and get that done before election season, if that's okay with everyone, rather than wait for the LDCs. And the other issue with sign code, just while I'm messing with it, and I'm not asking to do anything, I'm just raising it with the political climate these days. When we went through and added the murals back in, started with commercial properties and residential properties might want to put a nice mural on their wall or on the side of their house. So we added residential murals. With the political climate, I just felt since I'm doing messing with the sign code, if we're still okay with that potential for residents. Okay. Then I will leave it alone. Just wanted to ask a question. So I'm good. That was all I have.
Okay. City manager.
Just had a few comments. You may be aware that we had a major sewer break at the 2200 block of South Tacoma. I know several of you came out. We received the first of several bills yet to come. The first bill was over $47,000. So I just want to let you know, we're gonna bundle that all up, and, it was an emergency. I had to do what I had to do, and just wanted to bring that to your attention, to the public's attention. If, you know, I guess in the cases of an emergency, I can exceed my $20,000 authorization, but that was just something that had to be done. And I wanted to, bring it to your attention.
That's certainly understood. Most of that was probably trucking, right?
Yes,
Trucking the
yes, and manpower.
pumping and.
Pumping and hauling.
Pumping, trucking, also manpower, and then there were leases of pumps and then back trucks. And I would like to publicly thank, the city of Palm Coast. I sent them a thank you letter today, for their efforts in jumping in and helping us out as well. So it was kind of all hands on deck. It lasted over 3 days. The other thing is, the Board of League of Cities has invited me to speak on the American Rescue Act, at least what our perspective on it, and the plan we put together. And that'll be on November 4 at 10 a.m. And I think they're going to videotape it and share it with other people. So, and then tomorrow morning, I have a radio show appearance with, what's it called, Free for All Friday? Right. Yeah. So trying to learn all the names of these people in their shows and their radio calls for theirs, but I'll be doing it tomorrow. That's it.
It's WNC, yeah.
David Harris. Okay.
Thank you. Thank
He's just getting so popular.
I'll be hopefully within the first 2 weeks of November. Excuse me. Open up the petition process for the election. 2 commission seats will be available this year for the March election. So I'm preparing that. I've drafted the handbook and sent it over to the supervisor of elections, and she's reviewed it and gave the blessing. So hopefully we'll get that done. And as you know, you've had my brain's, I'm sorry, I'm not used to this. I've got first reading on this agenda, an ordinance for electronic campaign filing for your reports. This would take the reports out of my office. You would file directly online with the supervisor of elections. There would be transparency. She posted on her website. People could look at it. And that was some of the questions I had received before, is why don't you post them? And I'm like, well, I don't, but if you'd like to see it, I'll send it to you. So this will solve some of that and also take me out of correcting reports, and I've been told I shouldn't be doing that by
But if
the
we have
clerk's
questions
assistant.
about it, then we still ask you.
You can still ask them.
Okay.
Because you were a lot of help, I'm sure, with everybody. They're not something that get done a lot.
No, I understand that.
So, Mr. Chairman, one of the things, speaking of elections, I did meet with the supervisor of elections for Flagler County, Katie Barnhart, and she was looking for a place for early voting in Flagler Beach, and so I connected her with the pastor of the Methodist Church. Thank you.
Did Janine say yes?
I believe she did, and that's what she reported to me, and I left it to them to negotiate their arrangements. So there could be an early voting site in our community, and I just thought I would report that to you.
Okay. What else you got then?
That's it.
That's it? Chief building official? No, sir. We're okay to do. Alright. Here's Allison.
Alright, I don't have that much, but I attended the PDC meeting and went before and requested for an additional, we had sent letters prior, but thought maybe going in front of the PDC for an official request for an additional $25,000 for our discussion of the New Year's Eve fireworks, and it was denied. They said that we could take our original 25,000 that we had for our 4th of July fireworks, divide it, split it up, whatever we wanted to do. And it was also brought up in that meeting that TDC might stop funding fireworks for Flagler Beach and also for Palm Coast. And that would be something that they would be discussing in their budget, in their annual budget meeting. So that might be something that we want to start looking forward to adding to our budget if it's going to be ending soon. Another thing is we have our beach cleanup coming November 6th. It's the first Saturday, Flagler Beach All-Star Beach Cleanup. Meet at the A-frame at the pier at 9 a.m. And then also, this is for November 11th, we'll have our Veterans Park service in Veterans Park. Not our Veterans Park service, but our Veterans Day service at 1 p.m. in Veterans Park on November 11th. That's all I have.
Since you brought up the TDC meeting, I don't know if anybody was able to watch it or not. Try to watch them every once in a while, and I was bothered by a lot of what was said regarding our request around the 4th of July. To hear somebody in charge of tourism say that folks come here and have a miserable time on the 4th of July, I was bothered by it. And there was a lot of other things said, but I wanted to just express that I didn't agree with it. I don't know where they're getting their data from, but that bothered me. It was disappointing to see all the different things that were said that didn't pertain to the original request. I'm not sure why all of that discussion went as far off track as it did, but it was bothersome. So I don't want to sit in on that just for educational knowledge.
Well, I'm a member of the PDC, so I was there. I had to recuse myself because I'm obviously a city commissioner, and the issues that were being requested were coming from the city. So I didn't speak to that item, and could not really comment on it. But one of the takeaways that you have to consider and put in mind is that tourist development dollars are coming from heads to beds, is what it's called. Tourist dollars. Tourists that come to the city or to the county and they rent hotels or whatever, pay a tax. And those taxes go back into the Tourist Development Council revenues that they're spent to attract more tourists and bring them into the city, into the county for economic development incentives and this kind of thing here. So the discussion was, it was brought up by one of the members, is that it appeared that the tourist development dollars that are being expended for fireworks are being used to essentially entertain locals, because there's no data to show that the individuals attending the fireworks are spending nights here to watch the fireworks. So it's not really attracting tourists. So it flies in the face and it goes against the charter of what the Tourist Development Council is for, if they're not spending those dollars to attract tourists to the city and to the county. So that's why the discussion went on regarding the possibility of not funding fireworks for either Flagler Beach or Palm Coast in the future. The Tourist Development Director also had developed some data show that since 2006, I think, $550,000 have been spent on fireworks. So when the council starts looking at those dollars, you can't really justify how those dollars were spent to attract tourists to the county and to the city. You can see why there is a question as to the legitimacy of actually funding fireworks. So that's that part of it. I think what you're talking about is have to do with the rejection or the decline to fund the trial fireworks for New Year's Eve. And I think some of what I've heard, even some of the notes I have, is that the city didn't really produce enough of a budget and to actually justify the tourism council funding additional $25,000 for that. And he was also saying that it could conceivably set a precedent for others, like Palm Coast and other agencies around the county, to say, well, since you're funding another fireworks show for the Flagler Beach, we want some as well. So those are the considerations that I got from the meeting itself as to why there's questions as to why in the January meeting when we start talking about budgeting, the idea of funding fireworks in the future could be stopped. We were talking about. I know that's long, but I'm just trying to remember my old brain.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and that jogged my memory with something else that was being talked about that bothered me, because TDC's only purpose is not to drive heads and beds. The way the penny split works is that 5-cent tax. 3 cents of that goes to the marketing of your heads and beds. The other 2 cents is your budget items and your reinvestment in the community, and which is almost half of that tax. It's 1 cent, half a cent shy of being half. And the rationale that was being applied was, it bothered me to hear that, because that was the rationale that was used. And we're getting kind of off track, but it was that's only half of their goal, and they made it almost sound like it was the only goal.
Well, I mean, I was on the tourism council in St. Johns County as well, and one of the things that may be a consideration in the future, if we wanted to look at the possibility of additional considerations for the fireworks, is to have individuals or entities that would actually take surveys of individuals that are attending these functions. Just like the Corvette Club, when they come up for revenue, or they ask for money for the Corvette Club functions here in Flagler Beach, whatever, they have data, they have the names and the numbers, and they can show where individuals came to town to watch the Corvette Club, or to attend the Corvette Club function, and where they came from. I mean, I've registered for that club many years, so I provide my name, my zip code, and they have all that data that's fed into their computer, and they can pull it up, so when they go to the Tourist Development Council, they can say, we have X number of individuals that came from Vero Beach, they came from St. Augustine, they came from wherever. And in addition to that, we also host a function out at the Hilton, so they can show the number of individuals that attended the Hilton's function and actually stayed at the Hilton. So, I mean, if you have friends, relatives, or whomever it is that's coming into town for the fireworks, even if they're staying at your residence or something, you have some data to show that there's some payback to the community, which helps to justify the mission of Tourist Development Council. And that's just my thoughts moving ahead. And I think every organization does it. You go to Disney World or wherever, and you'll see people running around with notebooks asking where you from and this kind of thing here. That's how they have their data, is to do it for that.
Mayor, did you have any other comments?
No, I'm done.
Mr. Murray?
I guess I got started on that.
Yeah.
Okay, one of my big projects, as everyone's known, and we've been talking about since April, has been cigarette butt receptacles. We got 75 of them. 30 is sitting in my driveway right now, because over the last week and a half, with volunteers and entities, people throughout the community, we've been able to put cigarette butt recycling receptacles in a lot of different restaurants, on the boardwalk. 7-Eleven has them, Golden Lion has them, put them up there yesterday, Turtle Shack, Breakaways, Tortugas. Where else they have enough left where we're actually going to start putting them on the walkovers, because we found a lot of people do actually drop their cigarette butts and have cigarettes right there before they go onto the beach area. So that's what we're doing. The pier, we put a number of them on the pier. So one gentleman was standing over there the other day when I had a cigarette butt receptacle in my hand, and he was lighting up. And I just said, I don't think I had to say much more. I was a little bigger than he was, so I didn't think that was a good challenge. If it was a bigger guy, I wouldn't say anything. But at any rate, it's been fun. It's been really nice to see the reception from the people in the community and the feedback we're getting. The next campaign I'm having, and I say me because I'm starting with this, it's going to be we as a city, is an education process. And I think we need to start informing the restaurants and the bars around town with a copy of the ordinance that we passed on waste and litter. But there is a fine of $100 if you throw a cigarette butt on the ground. It's not of enforcement at this point, but we do have it in place. And also just encouraging people to use these cigarette butts because a lot of people are totally unaware that cigarette butts are not recyclable. I'm sorry, they're not biodegradable. They're actually made of plastics and cellulose, which actually are being ingested by the fish, the birds. I actually have photographs that show where red snapper and all happen inside of their intestines. You cut them open. Manatees and other kinds of wildlife are actually ingested in these. So that's the campaign that we're working on, is education and getting the rest of the receptacles up, as my wife says, one of these things in the history of the driveway. So the pile is coming down. Oh, that's right. The board shop got one today. When I was out meeting with our city manager on the way back, I stopped and put one up there as well. So people have been coming up, we're having fun with it, and but it's a good cause. And I'm also doing a press release that we're going to put out in local newspapers. And hopefully by the next meeting, Beaches Go Green director will be here, Anne Marie, to give us a little spiel on what the organization is all about that she founded and the benefits of the particular program itself. And again, for those who don't know, these cigarette butts are actually shipped off to Pennsylvania where they actually recycle them into plastic composite type laundry. So a cigarette butt that goes into the environment lasts as long as a plastic bottle. So much for cigarette butts. That's a great thing. I'm sorry.
Just one comment while you're on it. Would it be possible to get, say, a bench or something from that was made from cigarette butts that we could have in the city as an example? I think it would be great, just for awareness, and put it by a pier that was part of something, and have a tag and say this was made by cigarette butts acquired by this program.
We could probably do that. I'll talk to Emily about that before I push it comes down, and she can address it next meeting. Next item, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
The legislature is going to discuss again banning. No, you haven't gone that far. Banning cigarettes in public parks and on the beach. So having them on the crossovers will become ever more important.
One last thing on that. I did request 50 and they sent me 75. Because we described the type of environment we have here, the number of crossovers, and the number of cigarette butts that are picked up during beach cleanup.
I was gonna say, make sure that they're at the benches, because everyone sits at the benches at the boardwalk, pops away and then drops.
So those remaining ones that you have in your driveway, that was that code enforcement issue that we were gonna bring up, right?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I need to get them out of there. Okay, another real positive thing that really made my day this morning is I got a call from Home Depot, and they are just about 100% on board on helping to sponsor the replacement of the boards and the benches and that stuff. I initially went to them, I went to Lowe's. Lowe's came out, they've been kind of dragging along. I talked to them yesterday when I went up there, and we were trying to find a recyclable product. And but then he got excited again. I said, look, I'm not opposed to Lowe's, Home Depot, and everybody else in the county coming forward. But at any rate, Lowe's and Home Depot is very, very positive about this. And the reason that they called is they said, what else do you want done in the park? Do you need shrubs? Do you need mulch? Do you need whatever? So I'm putting a list together as far as everything's in that.
Christmas tree.
No.
We already did that this week.
Commissioner, can I ask you a question? Regarding the benches, will that reduce the price for the individuals that want to sponsor it?
Absolutely. Sure will. That should bring the price down as well. So they're looking at, right now I'm working with them to see how we can actually put the whole project together with the stainless steel bolts and everything. The only thing that probably the flag city. They're actually talking about bringing labor out as well. They're going to do a big project, because Home Depot is only supporting and sponsoring veteran programs
Oh, wow.
based on the discussions I had with.
That would be, composite material.
Yes.
They found something that's thick enough.
We've located a product that is completely composite, recyclable material. It may have to be cut down, but I have two people that are very good at woodworking and making it out to put on their bandsaws and get it to the specifications that we like. So that's gonna work in this one, as far as talking to those two. Okay, what else do I have? That's it.
First one, I think.
Go to enforcement. You want to talk about that then?
You said you were going to.
Yeah, that's, we're on it. We're pushing out.
I'm on a roll. Okay, the other thing that I've been talking to the city manager about, and we've all been having a discussion about, is code enforcements around the city. And I think, we all know that we've been without a full-time person for a while. But in the last 2 weeks, just to give you an idea of some of the things that I personally have been out to look at and talk to people about. And this also goes back maybe a couple of months. And this is sidewalk cracking and uneven pavement, which is actually an open veterans park that has been taken care of. But my point here is that why should it take a commissioner or me to actually bring to the attention that we have cracked sidewalks in the city, which is a liability? Because that's what I saw out there. I saw the unevenness of concrete where someone could have tripped and owned the city. So I actually went out there with orange cones and put them up myself, reported it to Rick. Rick actually got contractors in, I believe. But here again, why is this not a responsibility for anyone in the city that's working for the city? I mean, just because it's not your job doesn't mean that you can't come to the city manager or someone and tell us what's going on in the city. One of the things that Matt has put on his website, you see something, say something. So I think it's a responsibility of all of our department managers and anyone else to point out these kinds of things. Even if we don't have a code enforcement person, I'm just trying to give some of our staff the initiative to take on some of these responsibilities until we do get somebody on board. Overcapacity seating in businesses, we've talked about that. Noise ordinances, music, band saws, and equipment operated at 2 o'clock in the morning. I have an individual up north over here has been complaining for the last a year and a half because someone's operating band saws at 2 o'clock in the morning. He's had no reports. Nothing has happened. The man can't even sleep at night. This is a code enforcement violation we should be taken care of. Private pier construction beyond permits, beyond what the pier application is requested. The application goes into one thing and then it extends this pier to something else. No control over that. Fencing out of code. The fencing code says that a fence can't be more than 6 feet in front of someone's house. It's more than that. It's been going on. Nothing happens. Unregistered and inoperable vehicles in the streets. Some of those we're finally getting taken care of because they've been sitting there for a year or 2 years. Flags displayed more than you're supposed to. You only allow so many flags in the property. Same with signs, Skype signs or political signs, expression signs. Some people have multiple signs. Unregistered golf carts. I've seen carts around town that are unregistered. They're supposed to be registered. That's revenue for the city. Heavy equipment stored in people's private property. I'm talking about heavy equipment. If you use for construction, as well as construction debris. I can go on and on. So I guess the point is, I'm complaining, yes, because I'm saying that we need to give him the support that he needs right now, and I think he's going to give us a brief now of what's been done in order to address some of these issues as far as a full-time code enforcement person is concerned. And this is something that Drew loves because he told me he loves code enforcement. So if he wants to address this as well, please do it. But I'm going to complain and keep complaining until we start addressing these issues because we've been having hours and hours of meetings this week and prior to that on land development code and this kind of thing here. It's a waste of time if we're not going to have enforcement and we're not going to have follow-up if we're not going to have compliance. That's where I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm done.
All I will will say, and I do, it's as I told Ken, I've been doing code enforcement the very first city work I've done, so I've been doing it for 20 years. And I speak sometimes at the Central Florida based conferences. I have a special place in my heart for code enforcement officers. It's a hard job to take a special person to do it. You have to be able to get along with people, and you also have to not be a pushover. Mr. Woodson and I have discussed some of those qualities in the code enforcement officer. I know Mr. Woodson appreciates the value code enforcement officer and the code enforcement team. I think as I told Ken and as I told Mr. Woodson, one of the things to think about is the administrative work that goes into a code enforcement case. There's lots of notices that goes out, there's lots of mailings. Bonnie does a great job. Part of, I think, where your department has just gotten stretched over the years is everybody at the City of Flagler Beach is multitasking. We do. We all do. You do. Everybody in the city multitasks. It's part of what makes Flagler Beach great, but it also gets things stretched thin sometimes. And so, what I would encourage is don't just focus on officer, also think about the administrative support you're doing. Bonnie does a great job. He has 15 different roles she's working in. So just keep that in mind. I know you well know Mr. Woodson. The other thing, what I really wanted to say, and whenever these conversations come up, Ken said about, we have all these long meetings and we pass all of these laws. If we're not enforcing them, you're absolutely right. You might as well not do them. And the story I tell whenever that topic comes up in a meeting is, sister-in-law was living in Germany for the year. She's in Switzerland now, but when we went over to visit her, she'd been there about 2 years, and she was telling me how, actually, we think of Germany as laws. I think they don't have all that many, but the ones they have, they enforce them to the T. And not only does the law enforcement enforce them, they are a rule following culture. We are a country born out of disobedience. They are a rule following culture, and neighbors will pick up the phone and they will say, this person did this. If you jaywalk, they will stop you and say, it is not okay to jaywalk. So it's that kind of society. To your point, if you see something, say something. I think that's a great point. I know I've done it too, but the yellow curves where I parked over there. Coming inside and say, hey, if somebody hit the yellow curve, it's been knocked into the sidewalk because that's a trip hazard. So encourage everything that I think you do too. I'll shut up now.
Well, I mean, here again, I know that the new laws that they have in Tallahassee, which discourages people to a great extent, because no one really wants to call in the code enforcement or violation on your neighbor. And that has, I think, to a great extent, caused some people not to say anything, which caused some things to be as they are.
And I think that's actually what made me a little bit excited about those words. If you see something, say something, because in working with code enforcement departments, one of the things we've been struggling with is the fact that anonymous complaints are gone. Mm-hmm. If we give an anonymous complaint, the code enforcement officer cannot investigate it. It's the craziest legislation. I mean, the craziest wording in legislation I can think of. So we've been trying to think, well, surely that doesn't mean if I have a violation on my property, that I can call up the code enforcement officer, hey, there's a violation on this property, but I'm not going to give you my name and create immunity for myself. That's not what they intended. But it's only a matter of time until somebody tries. But if staff is reporting what they see, if commissioners are reporting what they see, it takes some of that burden off of the public, because now if we have a more proactive role, and I still work with a couple cities that are completely reactive. They've been given direction. Unless you get a complaint, do not send a notice, and you're going to have a big problem with this, because you're not going to have name complaints. And if your code enforcement officer is out there documenting and writing down and saying, I saw this on my own, you're not going to have anything to enforce. I think it's a great idea. I'm going to share it with my other cities that I work with. So I'm excited about it.
And then last thing is that, I spoke to Mr. Woodson this morning about follow-up, and a lot of that has to do with having the proper tools, software, whatever it is, because, like here again, in my previous position, whenever something was reported, it went into what we call a pride system. It was automatically recorded, it's put in the system, the date, time, and then the follow-up. So if there's the time when they're going to have to go before a magistrate or whatever there's no delay, because everything's in the system. If anyone calls about it, you have a complete accountability of what's going on. But I hear again, I talked to Mr. Woodson about that, so he can share whatever thoughts he has on that.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. And again, there are several items here that I want to report to the Commission about code enforcement. process. We have 3 or 4 applicants already. We have advertisements hitting the papers this weekend. We have advertisements out online and Indeed and these kinds of hiring sites. And so we are right in the middle of the process to hire a full-time code enforcement officer. Our previous code enforcement officer was part-time. He was great because he had a law enforcement background, but he was part-time. And I think that even though he would come in on an occasional Saturday, there were things that were missed due to the fact that it was a part-time operation as opposed to full-time. So that's being corrected. The other thing is in the process of the city staff creating the culture change of doing exactly this about, hey, I don't care if it says it in the job description or not. You're out there, you're riding around the streets. It gives me 100 more eyes on the situation. I want you to say something. I encourage you to say something. And I am trying to build a management team and a culture that we help each other. This city, prior to my coming, had too many silos. This department not coordinating with that department. This department not speaking with that department. Whatever those issues were, they're all in the past now. And we are trying our best to do this culture change. The legislation didn't help us any. So we have Tallahassee. You know, we're trying to go in a new direction, and then you got Tallahassee over here fanning the flames in another direction. But guess what? We're not going to allow that to dissuade us. And we are going to implement the culture change. And if there are things that you need to report for right now, Rick, God bless his soul, he went and visited with a gentleman I got a complaint from at 7:15 a.m. yesterday. Now this is after he had been at a workshop until whatever time. Okay, so our staff is working hard, and we will, get the information and we'll respond on it as fast as we can. That brings me to this other point about administrative support. You're going to see me propose, and it's your pleasure whether you approve it or not, monies to hire administrative support. Because I don't want these complaints coming in and then sitting longer than they should. Or maybe the magistrate saying to do something and it wasn't properly followed up on in an appropriate time frame. In addition to that, I'm also going to plan in the budget next year, and you'll probably see line items for software and laptops so that the code enforcement officer can do the complaint instantly right there in his car. Take the photo, file it in the computer, email it to the system, the BSA software, talk with the code enforcement software, integrated, all of a sudden, boom, we got ourselves a case, documented in the system, ready to go. The other thing is there are 2 budget processes that we're going to work with to make this begin to happen. One is coming up to the end of the year, the typical budget adjustments for the end of the year, which in November and so forth like that. And then I usually do a budget amendment every quarter, so those kind of things you're going to start seeing. And then next year in our budget planning process, we'll have to figure out, okay, how many laptops do we want to get? How much do we want to spend for the software? What kind of software? But we want to make sure that the software talks to the accounting department software so that everything's integrated and that everybody has the same information. So these are the kind of things that it's going to take to get it.
I want to commend the city manager on following what was, if not the highest thing on the strategic plan list, very close to it. So I'm going to support whatever it takes to do what we ask you to do. I mean, and we wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have been if it hadn't been for the public, screaming for more code enforcement as well, we may not have floated all the way to the top. But, this is, it's been, you know, not saying anything bad, for us code enforcement officer, but like you said, it was always part-time and, stretched pretty thin. And, this person you're talking about, the person we had spoke about, the other day.
Yeah, we have, a temporary employee, who has shown great skill in a lot of these administrative support and accounting functions. And we're doing an analysis now about how we could pay for the position. And again, I'll be bringing that forward in the budget amendment process.
Yeah, that's well.
Mr. Whitson, do you have a, we have a tracking system today for code enforcement, or is it all?
It's all manual, and that's, good question. When I was in Panama City, one of the things I was responsible for was the CRA, Community Development Agency, and it was a CRA because it was a lot of blight and a lot of code issues were causing those problems, and it was just like one thing after another, like the commissioner was saying. So what we did was we actually did research and found a software that integrated with our laptops and then incorporated photographs from your phone immediately right there. So you could do the whole thing right there from your car. And it just expedited the process and also properly documented it in a way that it could make a good case in front of the magistrate. And then you have a record to do the follow-up. So there's actually, I guess what I'm saying is, I know from my experience in other communities that there are these techniques and tools that are out there for sale, and I've already had somebody start doing research on what they cost. And we'll be bringing that forward in the next budget process so that we can buy a system that would be compatible with our system, and just it'll be a smooth transition.
Anything off Commissioner Bryan's code enforcement?
Thanks, sir.
That's all you
I
got for
think,
this?
I think we all agree
I
with
think that's
that.
Thank you very much.
What I would like to do is hold the rest of the commission comments until the end, because we have a lot of waiting on the other items. So let's go to item 11, and we got application SP 21-10-01. That's nothing you have to read or anything. And we have Larry cover this, or?
Yeah. Yes, sir. It would be good if Larry could cover this one since he's worked with it closer than I have.
Long time no see, Larry.
As always, a pleasure to be here.
So you're going to item 11?
Yes.
Which is the apartment complex.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
10 got canceled, 11's the apartment.
10 was Beaches Grow Green.
No,
No, it was
I'm
reversed.
sorry, I thought I heard you mention special exception as opposed to final site plan. I don't maybe it was just me. But,
We're on the apartment complex.
okay, thank you. This item came before the commission, I believe, back in July. An ordinance was adopted to approve the rezoning to PUD on approximately 15 acres of property. The applicant went to the planning board at the October meeting, which was October 5th. The item actually passed unanimously. There were some concerns expressed. This was a rather unique project only because, as in addition to just the rezoning of the property, there was also a conceptual development plan that was reviewed, and also comments made by the planning board
and the city commission as well. So they've taken that plan, they've tightened it up, and we are here tonight, and the applicant is here tonight, seeking final approval to move forward with the development of this project. We're all familiar with this. It's located on Roberts Road, across from Wadsworth Park. Again, 15 acres. We also looked at a rezoning PUD for a single-family development that will be coming before the commission within the next couple of months. Future land use map designation for the property is mixed use. The zoning designation for the property is zoning and development, which is consistent and compliant with the rezoning and the land development code. We go through some few slides here, go over some of the more significant data, and we'll start with the site data table. As I mentioned, the total property is 15.7 acres. The open space is 9.6 acres, or over 62% of the property. The density is 15.2 dwelling units per acre. The comprehensive plan in that zoning district allows 18 units per the acre. So they are well below the maximum density and intensity of the property. Summary of the parking requirements. Total required spaces are 480. The total provided are 505. Handicap parking spaces, 11 required, 12 have been provided. Give a little bit of the site plan. It's a little bit difficult to read here, but just to point out some of the more major facilities and some of the improvements that have been proposed. Obviously, this black demarcation is representing Roberts Road. There's a main entrance that allows multi-directional access, both northbound and southbound. We'll move down to the northerly end of the property, and there is another access point, but it is restricted to right in and right out only. There are 8 buildings proposed on the site. There's a 20-foot perimeter landscape buffer around the entire property. There is a safety fence. That was a concern raised by the planning board for a safety fence around the shared retention pond. It's actually a master stormwater pond shared by other developments in the area. It's a little bit more crowded now. Looking at the lighter colors in the rectangles here, there's a fountain proposed, a roundabout. In the central part of the site is a clubhouse. There's trails that go through the property. There's a gazebo planned for the center of the property within the trail system. There's a speed table, and for those that don't know what that represents, it's an exaggerated speed bump, if you will. It's just a lot more gentler and typically much wider. And that is to make certain the traffic slows at a major crossing point for the trailway system. There are 5 sets of garages that can accommodate 5 vehicles, a total of 25 garage spaces. There is a maintenance building at the north end of the property. There also is a structure that will accommodate bike rentals, a garage for bike rentals, and also a pet grooming facility. This is a blow up, if you will. Let me go back here for a second. This facility here is the dumpster and compactor, which is only one on site. However, it has been centrally located, and there will be valet service, and the applicant who is here in the audience tonight, I'm sure can speak more to that if there's any concerns. But what I've done here is I've done a kind of zoomed in on the compactor and the dumpster site. There was concerns raised, and rightly so, about, well, what if a car stops or someone stops to empty their trash and want to recycle or whatever. It will be blocking the lane of traffic, and you can see from this design that there is a drop-off lane where vehicles can pull out of the driving lane and allow traffic to pass if in fact there is any. These next few slides are just elevations. This is the clubhouse. It's planned. We'll see the pool and other facilities will be located to the rear of the building. This is a picture of an elevation of one of the typical buildings on the property. Again, there's 8 structures. This again is a landscape plan. I won't go through it all, but each of the different shapes, if you will, round, hexagonal, whatever, represent different types of trees that would be planted on the site. There was a replacement program that we initiated with the applicants, and some trees of value had to be will be removed, but they will be replaced by similar type trees. And I can tell you that the landscape plan exceeds the requirements of our land development code. This is a blow-up of the clubhouse area. Again, I'm not going to go into detail, but I just felt it was important to represent the intensity of the perimeter landscaping and the fountain in front of the clubhouse and the visual impact it will make when people enter into the site. And this is again, very difficult to read, but it's representative of a typical planting plan around each one of the buildings. These pictures represent the different types of plant material. In most all of the plant material is water-wise plants, which require minimal irrigation and are quite native to the area. So that being said, that's a quick go around of what's planned out there. I'm happy to answer any specific questions.
Questions or comments? Commissioner Donovan.
Going back to the main entry space there, you got, I saw you had written there a right turn lane, so they're gonna provide a right turn lane outside of the 2 traffic travel lanes.
I'm sorry, I didn't cover that. Thank you.
Okay.
They are not required based on the traffic impact analysis that was done. The level of service is such that there were no off-site requirements. I asked of the developer that despite with the findings of the, as we call it, the TIA, I felt an imperative that we should have right turn lanes, primarily because of the proximity to Wadsworth Park. There's a lot of traffic there. You who live here locally know that on some given nights, even though there's no parking signs, Roberts Road is flooded. There's a lot of bicycle traffic, and they were very amenable to put in the right turn lanes and make those improvements. Also, which I failed to mention, thank you, is a crosswalk. I know the applicant is engaged at this time with Flagler County, since it is a county road, and they're also coordinating with them these right turn lanes. I know Flagler County has asked some things of the developer to make that an upgraded pedestrian crosswalk that can serve not only the preserve, but also the church adjacent to this site once that development is built. So they'll have a more common location, and the applicant can speak more to that if you desire more information. So yes, thank you, Commissioner Bellamy.
Now, I know that between that and the development that's going directly across the street from that, you try to line up those 2 entryways with each other. Is that still the plan?
Yes.
So if are they considering doing the same thing on their side and having a right turn lane?
Yes, they are.
Okay. So where is the crosswalk? Is the crosswalk going to be, say, south of where that other right turn lane would be? So it's not going across 3 lanes. It's only going across the 2.
At this time, the crosswalk is planned, I believe, and don't hold me to this number, but we moved it south.
Okay.
The county is not, they still want it further south. There's an issue with, if that's the case, there are some oak trees that would have to be removed that we would rather not. So the simple answer is that the applicant is working with Flagler County to resolve that, but the further south, they want to remove it as far away from the curve as we can, which makes a lot of sense. So they need to finalize that exact crossing, and it will be upgraded, it will be lit. So it's a good effort.
Mr. Phil?
I just have one quick question. At the last meeting, the applicant talked about having a potential shuttle bus bring people to the beach or across the bridge. Is that still in the original plan? Okay.
Yeah, both Eric Conrad, I'm sorry, and John Catana were here to answer any questions you may have.
Questions or comments? I had a question for the applicant. You'll have to come up to the mic. Your utility paperwork for the city of Palm Coast. I get that. I'm referencing a letter. It says that you're required to annex into Palm Coast in this letter. Did you see that?
We did receive an availability letter, and we're in discussions with the city of Flagler Beach to resolve all of those factors.
Right, and I mean, you are in the city of Flagler Beach. So,
We are.
Yeah, but do you have any intentions of annexing in the Palm Coast area?
That is not our intent at all.
Okay, and it's not enforceable. We can't.
It was an availability letter that they supplied because they do have a water line that runs along the road to our property. But we're working with the city and the staff to work through the utility needs to our property.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, as I saw it in there, it got my attention.
Sure.
Did you want us to address our end of that too?
Sure.
Yeah. Legally, the city of Palm Coast cannot annex properties through the city of Flagler Beach. You can only annex from unincorporated county. So it's mistaken wording in the letter or something that they cannot annex, and they could not annex into Palm Coast. You would have to decide to de-annex a property before you can annex another jurisdiction. And I know the city manager has also had conversations with Palm Coast about fall breaks in the letter.
Yes, the letter that you're referencing is dated April 29th. Our staff met with Palm Coast on July 6th, and we clarified that we would buy both the water from them because their water main is pretty close, and it didn't make any sense for us to run a separate water main. So we are going to buy both from them and then be the service provider. And I follow up to the discussion we had about this matter, contacted Denise Better, the city manager of Palm Coast, and she's good folks, and we've been getting along real well and talking, and so I have her word of honor that they're not going to annex these folks, and they're not going to even try, and so we're good to go. And in fact, our staff's been talking today about the rate, or the water rate. And so they're willing to work with us on that as well. And so I feel pretty comfortable with it.
I wanted to make sure we just got that on record.
People didn't move.
We don't have to do that with sewer as well, too.
No, sir.
We have sewer.
No, we have sewer. It's just the water.
Right.
Yeah.
We've had an interlocal agreement with the city of Palm Coast since 2006, and it had its first amendment in, I believe, 2012 to purchase the bulk water.
And applicant, do you have any comments that you'd like to add to the discussion?
Yeah, this is John Catano. I just wanted to add a little bit more color on the crosswalk. The location of it, it's 23 feet, at least right now, the proposal is 23 feet from the southern border of our property. And we have a 20-foot landscaping buffer all the way around our property. We don't really want to get any closer. We don't really want to encroach any more into the landscape buffer or get into it because there are some oak trees right there. So we're working with Flagler County on accommodating them and also accommodating us, but we are very far south for the proposed crosswalk.
And I was just gonna say, we're excited to be a part of the city of Flagler Beach. We're ready to get to work and ready to file for our permits very soon, and we're hopeful we'll approve our site plan. Thank you.
Question.
Sure.
If this does get approved, when do you anticipate, how long do you anticipate this project taking?
For beginning or for entire construction?
Before somebody can actually move into our department.
We think the permitting process, depending on working with the staff here, our plan is to apply for those by the end of November, and work through that process along with the planning staff. We've got our financing in order. We think that'll likely, the construction loan and things will close in early 2022, January, February, and we'll begin construction shortly after. And we think we'll deliver our first building and clubhouse about 14 months following start of construction.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, you'll have to have a seat, and I'll open this up to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this application 21-10-01?
Eric, all I want to say is
If you're on top,
yeah, no problem.
You can please state your name and address.
Sure. Brad Lebate. I live at 540 South Central. Are you guys looking at any like golf cart paths or things of that nature? And maybe we can get something to go across the bridge so golf carts can come across, so that people don't have to drive cars here.
Love. Been wanting to do that as long as I live.
You have to just change the state.
Applicant, do you want to respond to that? Can you get us all cars across the bridge?
That is not in our budget. We are hopeful at some point in time the city and Department of Transportation may assist with that. As was referenced earlier, we do have plans for a weekend shuttle service that would allow our guests to be able to be van or bus over to enjoy the beach and the community, and then be able to return home without having to park here, which I know is a premium on weekends. But we might have guests that or tenants that have a golf cart, and we'll use one of our garage facilities to store it, and I'm sure they would enjoy if that enhancement is made, but it's not in our plans.
We've been working on that with the Department of Transportation forever.
Every city manager has made a shot at that, except one. The new guy has not done that yet. And maybe his gift to gab might be able to make something happen. I find it's just crazy. You can pedal a pedicab, a gigantic pedicab, but you cannot take a golf cart. Yeah, we gotta have that plan. We need a plan. All right.
Congressman Walsh said he wanted to meet with you, so maybe I'll put that on the list.
There you go.
I think so.
All right. Any other members of the public wish to speak on this agenda? I see no one post public comment for a motion.
Approve the final site plan application SP 21-10-01.
Second.
Motion is second. Thank you for the roll call.
Commissioner Mealy?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Bryan?
Yes.
Commissioner Bellhumer?
Yes.
Chair Cooley?
Yes, the motion passes unanimous. Item 12, application SBX 21-10-01. This is a private school within the Coastal Community Church. Larry, are you gonna take us through that one?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. This item went before the planning board on the same agenda as the apartment complex, October 5th. The special exception by the planning board, after reviewing it, discussing it, raising concerns, voted 5-2 to recommend approval to the city commission. The two no votes were primarily specific to traffic control lighting, restrooms, student bathrooms, lack of defined outside activity area, and again, as I said, traffic control. There were at least 9 or 10 concerns expressed by the planning board related to school hours, eating facilities, capacity, duration of use, grades, classrooms, school entry, lighting, transportation, and activity area. There were also several comments raised by neighboring residents. And I believe some of those individuals are here this evening, and they can speak more to what those specific concerns are. This item is rather unique. As we've said in meetings before, special exceptions, they run with the land. So essentially, once a special exception is approved, it's perpetuated. At the planning board meeting, there were some concerns about the school expanding, about what happens moving forward. Should Ways Academy, the applicant, and the applicant is here this evening, and dropping back, there were some questions raised by why the applicant was not at the planning board meeting, and there's been some subsequent letters of objections that have been written stating that the applicant was not even there. He was not here because of health reasons. So I wanted to get that clarified. The applicant did provide to the city responses to the concerns that were raised by the our board, and those are included in your packet. I'm sure that given the opportunity, the applicant will speak to those matters this evening. But what's unique about this is that a question was asked because of the concern of a school being perpetuated as to whether or not the applicant would I shouldn't say agree, but about returning, and I may have to lean on Drew on this to get the language straight.
Talking about the limitation on
Yes.
duration. At the park board meeting, the representative for the applicant volunteered to limit the special exception to 1 academic year, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. And I think why Larry's saying that's unique is because where you started off with the introduction, he's absolutely right. Special exception, you were saying this land use fits. So we do not have a ability as the city to compel or require someone to put a limit on the duration of the special exception. However, if an applicant volunteers a limitation on the duration of the special exception, you can accept that volunteer, and you can then make it a condition of approval based on the fact that it was a volunteer limitation. So normally, again, we would not ask for or require a limitation, but special exception in lots of zoning matters, when something is volunteered, you do have the ability to say, okay, since you're volunteering it, we're now going to incorporate that into an approval of an approval.
For you.
If that's still what is volunteered, not even what they agreed to, but what's being volunteered, and if it's what you accept, then yes, you could make that a condition of approval.
And to expand on that, the 3 conditions that the planning board specified, again, was a special exception use that must apply for renewal yearly if needed, based again upon the academic year. And again, that was volunteered by the applicant. School capacity would be restricted to 15, and school parking, if any at all, since it's drop off and pick up, must be on site. Again, this is a permitted special exception. Again, the conditions being like all other special exceptions, that because of the nature of the use, it may very well be compatible with the area, but it may require some oversight and some additional conditions to make certain that the integrity of the area is protected. Happy to answer any questions. The applicant is in the audience if you have any questions that you want to present to him.
Okay. We'll get all our comments together, and then we'll let the applicant talk and have some questions for that.
I'd like to hear from the public first. Then.
Before we even discuss.
Or do we need Bruce and the applicant himself is not asking me?
The applicant should be given an opportunity to say anything the applicant would like to say. Whether that occurs before you have questions for staff or not. Generally, this portion would be questions for staff, not your open discussion. I think you meant questions for staff when you said
This is about Larry's stuff.
Oh, I don't have any questions about it.
Any conversation, anything that?
I just have a question regarding special exceptions here. And one of the things I'm looking at, and this kind of ties into what we were talking about, and what I addressed earlier about compliance, follow-up, and enforcement. And that has to do with the use of protect public health, safety, welfare, and convenience. You talk about health safety standards through regular health and fire safety inspections. Where's the enforcement? Where's the compliance in regard to that? Who's going to be following up to make sure those things are adhered to? Because one of the things we're just talking about is that we don't even have the staff to ensure that these kinds of things are done. How's that enforced?
I can't expand on that a little bit. Thank you, Commissioner Bryan. Fire marshal makes annual inspections of all businesses. He, in fact, in his inspection of the church, recognized that there was a school use there and brought to the attention of the leadership that a school was not allowed. It was the next day that the church, the church approached the city to file for special exception since they were not aware that they could not have a school or classroom studies, if you will, within the church facility without a special exception. And I want to add a little bit more to this too. You're going to hear certain comments tonight, I'm sure, based on the letters that I've seen. Concerns for children's safety, other extraneous issues associated with that. We can only control what we can control, and by that I mean what we're looking at is, does this land use fit the standards and meet the standards of the special exception that's being requested. All else above that, that we may very well, for sake of speaking as an example, the city commission may award a special exception. However, this being a private school, if it does not meet the standards of the regulatory agencies, it won't happen. So some of the comments that I've read are not within the purview of the city, but are regulated by the Department of Education, Public Health Department, so forth and so on.
Okay, so the other question I had, I guess, it had to do with the drop off. I was in front of the place today for about half an hour, just observing what was going on. And I did see apparently that someone dropping a child off, so I assume that they go in one part of the parking lot and come back out of the other.
Yes, it's a one-way. It's supposed to be a one-way system.
Right, it is one-way, so I guess that's the route that they would be using.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments for Larry? I had one. Just out of curiosity, based on the land use and the zoning and all that, is the church a special exception in medium density residential?
Yes, the church was approved by special exception. So I believe churches and schools are a special exception in every zoning district.
Okay. All right. We'll get the applicant up here and. And if you all want to take us through any material you got, I'm sure we're going to have some questions for us.
Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Robert Palmer. I'm the senior pastor of Crosswalk Community Church, and I was representing while Jonathan was ill. So I'm going to just let Jonathan put it in with his thoughts.
Yeah, I'm Reverend Jonathan Rogers, principal and head of school. Can I just make one clarification for Commissioner Bryan? We are no longer at that location at this time. So I just wanted to make that clarification. If there was students that was said that was not part of us. So after we were informed that we were not supposed to be there, we did leave, and we were letting Mr. Larry inform of that in advance. So
I guess we didn't talk.
Okay. And, you got any other material you wanna present for us?
No, so I'm here for any questions. I believe I presented, I think everything should be in the package. That was presented and any concerns. So yeah, if there's any questions, we can get those.
Okay, questions for the applicant?
Just a couple minor questions. You're planning on having one teacher, correct?
Two.
Two teachers, okay. Will all the students be, it's going to be, is it first grade through 8th grade?
So we are licensed with the Florida Department of Education, first through 12th.
Okay, first through 12th.
Mm-hmm.
And will the students be in the same classroom, or will it be first
So-
grade, second grade, third grade?
They are. So our model is a little bit different. We're an untraditional private school. We're a one-room schoolhouse model on how we do our education, how we teach our children like that. All our students, we do not have an open enrollment process. I think actually all our students are screened. So it's not anyone can come. We try to fit our students best with the education that we can provide them. But also how they would fit with inside of our classroom.
Will the students be from Levitt County, or will they be from outside of the county? Could they potentially be outside of the county?
As far as we're aware, we've not had anyone outside of the county. We currently do have a waiting list. And everyone that I know that's on that waiting list, whether they're approved, we haven't approved anyone at this point. They live within the county.
Okay, and is it an all year round school, or will they have the summers off?
The summers are off, so we follow along with the county's school districts through August.
Okay, and I did read you had no buses, so nobody's going to be bused coming down that street.
No, ma'am, we do not provide any transportation or buses.
Okay, so people just come in the parking lot, drop off their children, and then continue on their way.
Correct.
Okay. That's all the questions I have right now. Thank you.
Any other questions for me?
So you heard the staff's presentation. Is there anything you took issue with the staff's presentation? Is everything that we discussed as far as the length of term you're seeking for the special exception, that you're still volunteering the one academic year for the length of the special exception?
I'd like to make clarity to that request, because Jonathan Rogers wasn't here. Obviously, I was thinking academic year, because obviously we don't want to disrupt the students. So if we make it an annual year from this date to next year, it's going to be disruptive to the students. So we just wanted to obviously put that forward to help any disruption if hopefully approved an academic year.
So the end date then should be talking about would be this coming, I think, end of May. You said was the end of your this coming May or the following May?
My recommendation would be June to June, because that's within that school academic school.
So the term of the special exception you're seeking tonight would be through June of 2022?
So just for clarity, that is final. At the end, it will be no longer.
If you incorporate that condition into the special exception, that it terminates based on the applicant's request terminates on at the end of June of 2022, then yes, it would be a part of it. The special exception would be over at the end of June 2022.
And if they want to renew, they would have to come back in front
They
of
would have to
us.
come and ask for it.
And do so before June of 2022. I know they would have the summer, but they would want to give themselves as much time as possible so that this process could work through.
If I may make a comment, I'm just going back over the notes that were taken from the minutes of the meeting. It's only draft form, but again, that speaking about the calendar, the verbiage that I had that came from the minutes is that the applicant will apply for renewal yearly if needed based upon the academic year. That being said, one other consideration, if in fact the city commission would not extend the special exception for another year, I'm not aware of any discussion or language that's been introduced about a grace period to leave the premises, if you will. I don't know if that's an item that should be.
Well, I think what's been testified to today is that their academic year ends in May, So by June, the end of June, the school would not be operating within the building. He's saying no. So that we would not, I don't think they're asking for us to build in a grace period there. I think they're looking at the summer as their grace period, and I think there were comments made that they're also, I think, are you still in the process of exploring other potential locations so that you're not necessarily bound to this location? I know it kind of, everything hits you all of a sudden this year.
Yeah, we are under the impression, we do understand that the location is not appropriate for what we eventually want to become. That's why we're limiting the students. The limitation, I know it was mentioned at the last meeting I was not present to, that limitation actually came from us. Initially when we worked with Pastor Palmer here. So we know that we are currently looking. So yes, our request is that we finish out, we're able to finish the semester, which would be the spring semester, and possibly come back in the summertime when we're not in session.
I'm good.
Somewhere. All right. This side. Commissioner Bellinger.
Yeah, just, we have a list here of.
Is your mic on, Rick?
No, it wasn't. We have a list here that has a list that, was sent through as a recommendation from the park board, and apparently with some of it volunteered by the school. One being the special exception use for, renewed yearly upon an academic year. School capacity of 15. School parking on site only. School hours between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. Grades 1 through 7. Would you just expect that first year to be 1 through 7? So if something changes subsequent years, you may amend that.
Can I make one correction with that as well? So the spring semester, we've actually changed those hours. So it's actually less time in that location. It's 8 to 2.
Okay, well, if you're inside those parameters, then that's great. Now, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of what this list says and that you were okay with it.
Yes.
Okay. All right, asking that. And since if the special exception only goes for that from school year to school year, and they're agreeable to it as the person's running the school, is the school the same as the owner of the property? So we don't need to have an agreement by the owner of the property saying that the special exception can expire on a yearly basis.
The applicant is the one we want that from. Okay. Because they're the ones who are impacted by it when it goes away.
Okay. Well, so would be the owner of the property, right?
But you have the applicant here for the applicant specific use.
Okay. All right.
And I think really,
I was curious about that, that's all.
different cases we might treat them differently, but under these facts, because you have an applicant who is being allowed to ask for something by the property owner. This is not from the property owner, the school, not the property owner went out and said, I want to have school. Okay, that's not what happened.
Understood. Okay, that's all I have.
Mr. Brian.
Yeah, I guess this is more of a question to you. I assume that it's okay, but it's currently being used as a coffee cafe as well.
The church property is.
Yeah. So there's no conflict or any issues with the business and the school in the same building?
No, you have received in your packet, and I'm sure you will hear more tonight, is that what the school introduces is concealed carry issues. And so if you had somebody visiting the coffee shop with a concealed weapon, that's going to present issues.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm asking about these. the commercial part of it.
There is no state prohibition on having a school in a building with commercial, with office hours.
Except in the event that someone is to carry firearms.
And on that point, I would also point out this legislative session or the last one in Tallahassee, they had that same discussion because they also adopted a statute that says you can conceal carry in a church. And one of their points of debate was, well, you can conceal carry in a church, but a lot of churches have schools. How do we resolve that? And they did not resolve that, and which law went. But this is not the only circumstance this conflict comes up, nor the only jurisdiction in the state.
Okay. Thank you.
No, I don't.
I'm a little bit concerned about the parking, because there is the coffee shop. So if you're gonna have two teachers, each of them, I'm assuming are gonna have a car. Do you have a principal? Do you have, clerical staff as well that will be parking there?
No, we do not. Our office is off campus. So I am the principal, so I will be on campus.
Okay, so you anticipate using potentially?
Two parking places.
Two parking places. Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments for the applicant? And what I'd like to do is open this up to public comment, and we can have some final comment. So where to go? All right, we'll open this up to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? Can you come up, please state your name and address, Brad?
My name is Brad. I live at 508 South Central. I have 3 properties that are within 500 feet of this property, so my neighbors are convinced I'm buying the whole place. So, all right, couple of issues. Okay, I can tell you that right now that we have had 0 issues with the coffee shop. We've had 0 issues with the church. So we're all good neighbors. Okay. My only concern here is the noise that this can produce. I don't want people sitting in the parking lot waiting for the school to open with the cars running or their kids running around the parking lot making a lot of noise. This could be a non-issue, right? If the school's run properly, you tell the kids, get out, go inside, and then make your noise. But what I don't want to see is a bunch of kids running through the parking lot, okay? Or throwing rocks or God knows, I gotta say that. You know what happened to me one time? I live in an apartment. My car alarm went off. I went outside there. There was a 6-year-old that threw a rock and landed right on top of my car. $1,000 later, I was done. Okay, so they're small, but they can do a lot of damage. Okay. All right. My main concern is that I want to make sure that the schools run properly. That they're not letting kids run around in the parking lot. That they're going to force them to come inside if they're dropped off. And when school's over, I don't want them to be pushed out the door and waiting for the parents to come home, okay, or come to the school to pick them up. Now, another issue you may run into is the parents may say, hey, we can't come get you at 2 o'clock, so go to the beach and we'll pick you up at 5 when I get off work. So I'm concerned that intersection right there at Central and 6th Street, the cars are flying through there. So, I realize this is temporary, but we may look at putting another stop sign in there or something to slow the traffic down. I don't know if you're going to do any signage. At this point, since it looks like it's a temporary situation, I don't know how much, infrastructure you want to put around this. Okay. One of the requests that I'm making, and in my opinion, it's a small request. On the east side, I would like to see that some kind of a gate or a fence or something be put across there to prevent kids from getting behind the building. Right now we have a problem at night where people think it's really cool to walk past the church and then across my property and then over to get to the other side of the block. So we really need something to stop people from doing that. So I'm concerned that the kids, they're going to get let out, they're going to get in behind the building and start causing all sorts of problems. So I think if you're going to allow this, that we need to agree that we're going to block that off with some kind of a gate to keep kids from getting in behind the building on the east side. Let me see what else I've got here. I've got a lot of dogs and stuff. I'm sorry?
You're going to have to speed up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was on a 3-minute limit. Okay. I have dogs and stuff, and again, if you don't gate that off, the kids are going to be coming up on my property and trying to pet the dogs and all sorts of things of that nature. And then the last thing I have is the trash receptacles, where we're gonna put those out there. I don't have to look at it, okay?
All right, thank you, Brad. Any other members of the public who speak on this agenda? You can come on up. And we start with name and address.
Start with the mask. Michelle Boupeau, 602 South Central Avenue, Franklin Beach. You have a 5-page letter for me already detailing a lot of the specifics that are in the letter that I won't go into, such as like a temporary use permit, parking with a swing gauge overall city parking space, impacts of density in our area. I basically am in opposition to a permanent change in the land use from medium density residential to include another special exception for this location. The first being a church, the second being a coffee shop, the third being a school. I understand that any change in the land use would be attached in perpetuity to the property, and that it would remain as the property even after the property is sold, or the property might even be enlarged to include a second story for the school. I base my opposition on the permanent change based on the criteria that you will be using in your decision tonight, specifically criteria 3 and criteria 6. Criteria 3 says that the use will not cause substantial injury to the value of other property in the neighborhood where it's to be located. And criteria 6, that adequate off-street parking and loading is provided, and ingress and egress is so designed as to cause minimum interference with traffic on the abutting street. As a property owner living at the Flagler Sea Cottage townhouses across the street from the applicant, I believe that there would be injury to our area and that adequate parking does not exist to award a permanent special exception for the school. Looking at the packet in the back, I see that there are 11 other letters that also are asking for voting against this based on those same criteria. Keeping in mind that in our area at the Flagler Sea Cottages, we've had a lot of really bad experiences with these special exceptions. They've not worked in our favor, and they seem to be endangering the quality of our life. In my 20 years of ownership of this location, I've lived with a special exception in our medium density residential neighborhood that morphed from a simple request for what was explained to me as a little tiki hut offering some handmade trinkets at a private home that turned into a multi-room gift store that at one point had a sign out on the street saying free beer, had loud outdoor music entertainments without permits, included an additional business of a relative's landscaping company with sample figurines and fountains displayed outside, and claimed to be a commercial property since the property had a gift store. Thus, we at the Flagler Sea Cottages in the neighborhood are in a what-if way of thinking and trying to imagine what could evolve and come back to haunt us. So when I see this application, in my mind, I'm seeing a miniature Old Kings Elementary School vision and a special exception slippery slope nightmare in my future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public who speak on this agenda? And can please start with name and address.
Sylvia Gregorio, 602 South Central. Drew brought up the thing that I brought up at the meeting regarding firearms. I sent you a letter regarding 3 items that are concerning to me that you need to consider as you think this thing. One is firearm, of course, which is a problem. The second is alcohol. You know, if you want to open business like the wine across from us, you can't do that now with the school. You're too close to the school to open a business with wine or any kind of alcohol. And the final thing is renting. You've got my letter. I don't want to suspect it's not a 3-minute thing, but take a look at it. I think this needs to be discussed and looked at before we make any kind of decision. But I want to talk about it as the school itself. I know this is a request for an exception for 1 year. What we were told is that we wanted to open this for a year because a person had a school going, needed a place to be, and that a year is it. But then we were told later, well, we can apply again for the 2nd year or 3rd year on a year-by-year basis. That tends to me to be not a 1-year thing. I get the distinct impression from the prior board discussions that the presenter made, that they'd like this to be something more than that. Possibly the longer thing is for 1 year, a permanent thing. Here's my concern. I have this vision of a year from now, if you approve this. The school doing really well. It's got its 15 students. And by the way, if they're teenagers, can they drive there? Can they park there? Nobody mentioned that. But I have this vision of a meeting like this one, except instead of these people sitting here, I see 15 children in the front row and 30 parents behind them. I see some little kid coming in and going, please don't close down my school. We like it here. We're having good fun and we learn a lot. Don't make me go somewhere else. And I refish the idea of approving again this thing year by year by year. As kids come up and say, don't close my school down. We like it here. This is supposed to be a 1 year thing only. If you do it for 1 year, then make it for 1 year only, and that's it. I don't want to see it at all, but I don't want to see you do something where every year it comes up again and you keep doing this. Otherwise, you might as well make it permanent and get it over with. That's the problem I see. They say it's requested for permanent school. I haven't seen that. Churches do that. They have schools. I don't think it's appropriate because in our area, for one, and for one other reason. There's 15 kids, maybe 15 different parents. When they come to pick them up, there's no way 15 parents can hit that parking lot at one shot with a line weaving somewhere out of that parking lot. Cars come in to pick up 15 kids. So I see it as a problem with parking and with driving through. Anyway, my request is don't do this thing. Otherwise, I see you being faced with the condition of disappointing 15 kids or disappointing us when they ask us for a year from now. Thank you.
Any other members of the public wish to speak on this amendment? Can you please state your name and address?
Cassie Triplett, 606 South Central. I just want to reiterate what Michelle said. I think as a community right there, we're all just very nervous about the slippery slope that this seems to entail. And for myself, as a mother of 2 children in school, the building itself just very much worries me. The location worries me. The safety of the children inside a building that's open for a church and a coffee shop concerns me. So I just wanted to state my opposition. Thank you.
Any other members of the public wish to speak on this agenda? All right, so now I'll close public comment.
And before you start your discussion, you should give the applicant an opportunity to ask anything that you thought.
We will do just that. Applicant, if you want to come up and state your case before we get into some more discussion. Okay, I will address just kind of how that worked, but I heard it again. We do have a drop-off and pickup policy. It's already in place. It's been approved by our school board. That policy does state in there that our children do not leave the school doors unless their parent is in. So there's no running into the parking lot because we're fully aware of the car going in. The other thing I can address to the beer and wine, selling of that, and Mr. Smith may be able to correct me, but I believe from our registration that there was a 500 feet distance between what can sell. The closest place that sells alcohol to that location would be the bar. I'm not sure what they need. Yes, they do. Yes.
You know, the location would not affect existing properties. It would just affect new applicants for liquor licenses, which was, I think, was the public concern, was that it might foreclose a different property that's not currently from getting a liquor license in the future. So I don't think the concern was what exists now, and if it exists right now, it's not a concern because of legislation. They don't take away liquor licenses; they just don't give you new ones if you're in that segment.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. And the last thing that I'll note on here is I do believe the police chief has toured our property and seen how our security works. We are actually closed off from the coffee shop. There is no way for public to actually access that portion of the building.
A follow-up question that I think came up in public comment, and I don't know what the answer is, but I think the applicant should be given the opportunity to make the record. So you've heard concerns expressed about this becoming a long-term thing. I think I heard you testify earlier that your long-term plan is to not be at this building, is to grow to the point where you need to be somewhere else. Are you counting on, if the commission were to say tonight, we'll approve this through June of 2022, that are you prepared to not be able to be in that building again next year? I know you don't have a place yet, but you're actively working, I think you said that, but are you going through tonight understanding that you don't have any guarantees that you'll be in there July?
Yeah, we are fully, that wasn't originally discussed when we partnered with the church on this, but from everything that's come out from the last meeting, that we are aware of that. Originally, what was not our intention, it was our intention to be temporary only, but we were hoping to get at least 3 years out of it originally, but we understand the condition.
Did that muddy you off?
No, I wanted them to be an opportunity to speak to what the public said and to speak to you, if, to make sure that everybody in the room understands that if you say June of 2022, you mean June of 2022, and there are no guarantees beyond that.
Anything else you'd like to respond to before we?
I'd just like to say that I did the walkthrough with the city police chief, and I did the walkthrough with the fire chief, and obviously tested everything, made sure the cameras were in place, everything that he requested. The police chief made sure that there would be no traffic issues, because he said that they would be done with that many students with no problems, and so obviously I beckoned his counsel. The other thing that's always brought up is that in front of our picket fence is a stretch of the road that people park in. And so we, as the church, have put cones out there as the bad guys to tell everybody not to park there. And so I just requested that the city be responsible for their signage to say that there is no parking there, because it's one of the big things that keep coming up there. But people park there and go to the beach, people over the road park there, and obviously it reflects on us, and obviously the coffee shop, which we're doing everything. We've been there 14 years, and I think we've done the best we can to be helpful and be compliant with the community, because we really don't want to do that. We want to be a blessing and not a challenge to the people. That's what. So I just wanted to say I walked through with the 2 chiefs, and they were comfortable with what we presented.
Absolutely.
Can you address the one resident's concern about when the children are dropped off all at 8 o'clock or 4 to 8, there could potentially be a line down the street of cars? We've seen it in Old Kings, obviously. We have certain drop-off times to alleviate that.
So I can't speak for it for the morning, because we don't have anything in policy at that point, but we do have a policy that states for the afternoon pickup, parents do have to be within a certain time frame. That time frame is 20 minutes. Anything after that, that does have to be discussed with us prior on how that does, and parents are actually fined if they go over a certain amount of time.
I just had a question for you. So that area that's on the street is only a sidewalk, correct? It's not public parking. Okay. I just wanted to get clarity on that.
It's a little extra wide through that section, so it's disabled.
Yeah, I got it on the satellite and I'm looking at it.
Yeah, Chairman Cooley, if I can clarify that, what that was, the previous use of that building was back out parking all along the frontage. So that, in essence, the entire frontage of that property was a driveway apron, and it was never corrected once things were changed.
Remember that we could dig it.
And then since then they added the little fence and
Yes, for separation. Yes.
Any other questions or comments for that?
And we are limiting to 15 kids. So you're not gonna have a what?
Yeah, I think it's kind of touching on. Just kind of touching on what Commissioner Neville was touching on. You said earlier that you have a waiting list. So are you ready to go to maximum capacity since you have a waiting list of 15?
Our waiting list isn't capacity. But even with our waiting list, those students are not guaranteed a spot. We still have to screen those students. But no, we do not have 15 applications.
Okay, that's, because you said you had a waiting list, I didn't know if that meant you were waiting to book the space in order to expand to the maximum capacity of that.
I think currently, based on what was presented at Barbour, I think what's in your packet, they're doing remote learning right now, so they're not in the building at all.
Any other questions?
There was one more that was asked by the public that I think hasn't been covered yet, if you don't mind, Chair. One of the public comment questions was whether there were teenagers there, and if there were, would they be driving?
Currently, we do not have any teenagers at Deer Drive. It was brought up to the school board on what policies we will put in place there. I believe we will be addressing that if that comes up. But as far as at this point, we do not have anyone that drives.
Well, you said you were gonna use two spaces.
That would be for
And
staff. That would be for
staff.
staff. So that is the only thing that we have.
So we need to clarify that. Okay, so if we were to limit it,
If the city commission were to say that only 2 of those parking spaces can be used by the school for staff, that would mean that if you had a teenager who was driving, they would not be driving to school. Are you okay with that?
We're gonna have to park off-site.
well, we don't want to encourage that.
You're also, one of the recommended conditions that all parking be on site.
And just a question for clarification, the grade levels of the students for this next year would be what?
For spring or for the
For the year?
for just the spring, we are 1st through 7th.
So you're not going to have teenagers before this special exception. If it were capped in June of 2022, there would not be teenagers before that special exception ended.
Correct.
Right.
But we are registered 1st through 12th. But we would not be putting.
When I was in 7th grade, I didn't drive.
Well, not legally, you know.
Not that you would admit to.
I was never caught.
Okay, any other,
Really fast.
any other questions or comments for the applicant before we go?
Well, this is not for the applicant, just it's a comment. Having lived through what Michelle and Phil referenced, as that has created the what ifs, I understand where they're coming from. But I don't think it's right to hold a private act against any person. I think we need to remember that this building was initially DAB, that had lots of cars in that. Was actually more dangerous because the parking was back out into the street. There really was no safe sidewalk there. So the building has been improved in that sense. And the DAB had people in that all the time. I think if we are clear that it's only through June, and that it's 15 days, that it's 2 parking spaces. I think we're okay with that.
Okay, so we're gonna segue to discussion then. Y'all can sit down.
Since essentially Commissioner Belhammer had his hand up while the applicant was, I just want to make sure.
No, it's all, yeah, I was.
Also, since I turned my mic on, before you start your discussion, one point on the liquor license comments that you received briefly there and in more detail in the packet. And I'm not taking a position one way or the other. It's your job to weigh the evidence. You have to do that. But I want to give you context to weigh the other things that play into that. One, with the church that's already there, you already have a 300-foot circle, which you could not have a straight liquor licensed property or business in. So you already have 300 feet circle around that. So you're talking about 200-foot delta with the school, because you already got 300 feet covered by the church. We are talking about liquor only establishments or less than 51% liquor or less than 51% food establishments. It does not mean restaurants. Nobody's claimed it in restaurants. I just want to make sure that you all understand that when you're considering the arguments that we presented to you. And finally, just to remind you all that what I said earlier, churches and schools are a special exception in every zoning district. That means that anytime a church or a school were here before you to say we would like a special exception, unless they're deep into a residential district in Flagler Beach, you can make the same argument that I can't put a bar next door to you anymore or within 500 feet. And as we all know, commercial and residential is very pressed up against it. There's very few places where a church or school could ask for a special exception where if that's our standard, and it may be a standard that works that you say, nope, they're right in this neighborhood and it just doesn't fit here. There's too many properties that would be affected by it that couldn't have that liquor license. But just keep in mind that what you do tonight, just keep it in mind if you have another church or school, because almost every property in Flagler Beach church or school has to go on there. You could say that same argument, so somebody might not be allowed.
I'm looking at satellite, and of course it's not to scale or anything, but just on a rough guesstimate here, within 500 feet of this property is Yanker, Tortugas, A1A Burrito Works, and 7-Eleven, which all have licenses. If something, you made a comment before, you said if something happened with the license, then
you couldn't get it. If one of those places moved out, restaurants it doesn't affect. So if they're serving food, then they're not affected by it. This is only straight bar, or wine sales. I think one of the comments made in one of the public comments was wine bar. Wine bar would be one of those. If they're not serving 51% of their revenues from food, then they would have to have that liquor license that you cannot get into that close to a school. So if they're restaurants and they lost their license, then it would not affect the restaurant. If you were a bar, if you weren't getting 51% of your revenue from food sales, in addition to whatever you're making from the alcohol sales, and you lost your license, you would not get a new one. And again, if you're within the 500-foot circle and not within the 300-foot circle, because there's already a church there, if you're within 300 feet of that church, and the same thing happened, you're not getting a liquor license.
If I may, I think another way of saying that, unless you're four walls, it doesn't apply.
it doesn't apply to
This is for on-premises consumption. But I think it may well apply. It would apply to a wine bar, and that's one of the examples that was given to you in your public comments. So it's not in the four walls is a fair example, but it could be something classier than a four walls.
That's why we like
more upscale. I did comment on that. So it's bar or school. So I don't know. I look at it. It's kind of an 8-month trial. The pastor says that he screens all his students. So I don't envision a bunch of unruly kids running around. Larry spoke to them having to abide by the rules of schools to keep their license to teach, I guess. And the coffee shop's not connected to the school directly, so they could protect themselves within the public out. How many parking spaces are there, Larry? Several, right? About 8, maybe?
15 or 17.
12. So, limiting them to 2 parking spaces might be a little much. There may be a time you need a parent comes to have a conference with a teacher or whatever the case is. I don't think there's a real need to limit to 2. Those are my comments.
Any other comments or thoughts?
I was just going to add, the church has been there for 14 years, And for 14 years, they've been good neighbors within our community and have improved the building. They've brought a business, which has been an asset to our community. And it would be nice to see a chance given to a school to see how else it can enhance our community.
The only concern I have is, I know it's temporary, but how many temporaries would, need? I'm gonna put limits on it. And I'd like to see the entire concept of the school flourish and do much better. But I look again at 2 to 3 years, 4 years out, if there's a business in that area there. And if it's extended beyond that period, then you're up against another business and possibly coming in, if it is, a wine or something like that. If someone bought tortillas and decided they were going to change it into something totally different from what it is, which is an independent possibility, and it would restrict them as well. So I'm okay with it as long as it is temporary, because that means that we're not safe to say.
I think tortillas is 600 and something.
Is it?
Yeah, because that came up somewhere along the way.
Okay.
I don't remember where I heard it, but it's over 600.
Okay, well, again, as long as it's considered temporary and it's not going to be a permanent thing, then
I can clarify that the 3 establishments that they mentioned, they're all further than 500 feet.
Okay.
They measure from door to door, so it's not property line to property line.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be similar to, entertainment permits that get reviewed once a year. If they don't play nice, then we don't have to, check off on it.
Okay.
Well, actually, it'd be a little bit more thorough than it would be a full-blown new, it's not like with your, they would have to go through this entire process again. Because when special exception ends, it's done. So it's not simply a renewal, it is a new special exception application.
So they go back to the public first.
Okay, good.
Okay, the feedback that I have is a little bit different. So we have a established church of 14 years, busy, successful. Then you add a coffee shop to that same property, which does not have any sales cap, traffic cap. It's just, that's in there, they can go as busy as they want. And then on top of that, on the same property, to add a school, in my opinion, is way too much for one property in a residential area. The church is busy, that's good. The coffee shop, they stay busy. Now we're not gonna, nowhere in my decision making is holding the school accountable for other things that happened in the past, like it was brought up before with a special exception. But the coffee shop themselves is going outside of their own special exception on a regular basis, and they advertise it all over social media. It's not even a secret. They're having their own art shows and music, and they're adding all kinds of traffic that they were never agreed to do. They were supposed to be an artisan coffee shop, not a full-blown restaurant, not doing art galleries and music, art shows and all that stuff. But you have a building that has multiple potentially special exceptions in a very small property with very little parking. That is something that will have a detrimental effect for the surrounding area. And I don't think it's indisputable almost, at least in my head. I can't logic it out. I don't think it's right. I think the property owners that are there are the ones that have rights when it comes to special exceptions. It's too much for that building. That's just my opinion. Any other thoughts or discussion? Planner, city. All right, and we already did public comment, so we can make that a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll listen.
Is your mic on, Jane?
It is on, maybe I should be closer. I make a motion that we make a temporary approval.
No, you're approving.
Okay.
Approve. You can start off normally. Approve.
Okay, we approve special exception 21-10-01 for the period of now to June of 2022.
Is that the end of June of 2022?
At the end of June 30th, 2022.
And does that include?
Including the fact that it's limited to 15 kids, that they only use 2 parking spaces in that clinic building, that they follow the plan, the recommendations of the planning board. We could say that.
Yes.
Is that enough?
So that those conditions plus incorporating those recommended by the planning architect.
Yes.
I'll second the motion.
Larry, did they capture everything you wanted to capture?
Yes.
Would you be willing to,
She made a motion.
He can, but in discussion, there can be friendly amendments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You have a motion.
There's another partial list here of school hours and things that might not have necessarily been recommended by the FAR board, but volunteered
Yeah,
by.
but some of these things have nothing to do with us, like eating facilities. That really isn't something for us to invest in. Which grades they actually have there.
Perhaps Commissioner Belhumeur, were there specific ones of those that you'd like Commissioner Mealy to consider friendly amendment to the motion?
It just, no school capacity was one recommended by the FAR board, so that wasn't. I guess not. I just thought that they were volunteering and include that. Yeah, I'm all right.
Motion second, roll call.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Bryan?
No.
Commissioner Belhumeur?
No.
Commissioner Mealy?
Yes.
Chair Cooley?
No.
Fails.
So that the motion fails, but the item is not closed because you have to give an up or down vote. So if there's a motion to deny, you can make a motion to deny. You can make another motion to approve. But it is a special exception request, so you have to either approve or deny tonight. If it is a motion to deny, you need to state which of the 7 criteria in the motion. You need to say which of the 7 criteria. So the floor is open to another motion. That's where you are now.
I make a motion to deny.
And if you would state in your motion which of the 7 criteria you believe are not met, you can name multiple. If you need, it's page 3 of 5 of your staff report. The bottom of that, it starts from the bottom of page 3 of 5 where those 7 criteria begin. I'm sorry, six criteria. 6 criteria.
Page 5. Item 1.
Well, the use is a permitted special exception use. It is in the schedule as a special exception, so it does meet item 1. I don't think there's a dispute over that. I think the items, Commissioner, that you had raised earlier when you were discussing the item, I think number 2 you had mentioned. And I think you would reference number 4.
Number 4 is correct.
And you'd also reference, I think those were the 2 that your comments were directed to. Those specific criteria were number 2 and number 4, which is use is so designed, located, and proposed to be operated with health, safety, welfare, and convenience will be protected. And then number 4 is the use will be compatible with adjoining development proposed here for the district. I can go through the 2 that your comments earlier. That's correct. So are those the 2 you were incorporating into your motion?
Yes, sir, those are the 2 I call right now.
Thank you.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion, and a second?
Sure. Commissioner Bryant?
Yes.
Commissioner Belhumeur?
Yes.
Commissioner Mealy?
No.
Commissioner Phillips?
No.
Chair Cooley?
Yes. And so the motion denied passes 3-2. Okay. We are back under commission comments. Commissioner Belvin. Oh, I got so much. Yes. I already checked that off. It's not even done.
Because Penny mentioned it.
All right, item 13. Sorry about that. I'm jumping around.
Ordinance number 2021-14, an ordinance by the city of Flagler Beach, Florida, amending section 2-17 to add a section entitled electronic campaign filing, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in the code of ordinances, providing for conflicts, and an effective date.
Okay, discussion. City manager, is this you, Penny?
Yes, sir.
All right.
So this was mentioned to me in our canvassing board meetings with the supervisor of election last year that she had offered this service and that Palm Coast had begun using it. And last year I was too far into my petition process. I was just like, I'll think about it for next year. Got kind of busy and sidetracked, and I remembered about it, so I'm getting it on there.
Well, that's pretty straightforward.
Motion to approve ordinance 2021-15.
Any other discussion on that? No. All right, we'll open this up to public. Any members of the public wish to speak on this particular agenda item ordinance 2021-14? Sydney, you got anything? All right, we'll close public comment.
Oh, we already have a motion.
Commissioner Belhumeur?
Yes.
Commissioner Mealy?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Bryant?
Yes.
Chair Cooley?
Yes, motion passes unanimously. As long as I am on track, go back to Rick. All right. My turn already? All right, Commissioner Belvin.
I'll keep it short. All the days and weeks are running together with all these meetings. I actually had 4 legitimate meetings yesterday. Started out with TPO down in Daytona. Maybe we can try to put together some ideas to pass through to them for their cost projects, which will be very early next year. So I'm kind of thinking that the sidewalk project or part of it going down Flagler would be a good candidate.
For the NPO?
Yes.
Yeah.
Question.
Or TPO is refer to it.
Okay, sorry.
Isn't the boardwalk considered a sidewalk?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. It's more of a recreational amenity.
Right.
Because there is no sidewalk on that side of the road. And the sidewalk kind of goes into the boardwalk in addition to the crosswalks.
And actually, that's not in the right of way. That boardwalk is on parcels owned by the city, and some of them we have long-term easements through other people's property. Those are the Easton A1A properties that is on, not the right of way.
Oh, we had an angle.
Yes, we had an FCT grant, Ocean Walk project.
But following your logic, I've long wanted to, since I came, do something about the parking along A1A and stabilizing that parking. Right now it gets rutted out. It's a safety hazard in my opinion. So perhaps that's another project we could raise on the list.
Those blocks?
Yes, and make it the pervious pavers along it.
Okay, let's just, maybe we can, put together a list and, get those applications in at some point when it comes available.
Are we all dropped off? Is the mobile hub still on there? The mobility, multimodal
I think that multimodal thing is
went
so
away,
on there.
and we had a sidewalk on Lambert at one point on there too. But I know for several years Larry didn't do too much with those.
Well, maybe what we need to do is if you could just put it in the notes that we would renew our list.
I'll pull their list and print it out for you.
And then maybe we'd bring it back for your review and then send it in before the end of the year.
Also went to Friends Day 180 meeting yesterday. Went to the parks meeting. They're getting ready to gear up and do a building center conference. Build better conference or something, better roads, and including their ribbon cutting for their new designation, that section of highway. So that'll be coming up in March. I believe they had some pretty serious conversation on that today amongst the players. So I'll be coming back with more information on that. There's going to be a diabetes month this next month, and there'll be a flag raising in Clemens Park on November 3rd at 11:30 a.m. Soon after Chief Pace has a ceremony here, I forget exactly what's good.
The Sons of the Revolution. That's it. And his police also.
Okay.
Detective Lynch is going to be on.
So immediately following that, we'll be going up to the park. Is that the third? It's a Wednesday, I believe.
Yes, it's next Wednesday.
I think most of you up here know, I went and participated in a golf tournament for the hospice house out here at the hospital. Suitors twisted my arm, got me there. No, it wasn't that. My dad passed through the hospice house, so that's a charity I like to support. And one of the ways of supporting that was we have these signs at each tee. And typically it's a promotion for a business of some sort. And I thought, well, I wanted to do a little bit more for the charity, but not promote myself, certainly. But, so my thought was to honor somebody I knew would have been at that golf tournament. So created one of these signs that said, "This hole's for you," in memory of Larry Houston. So
that was a beautiful thing.
Yep, that was very nice.
Really good idea.
And we played with, I invited David Ayers, who was probably his favorite golf partner. And Scott Fox and Paul Chestnut played in our fortune. Of course, we came in like 26 or something like that. But we had fun, and Scott actually got the longest drive on the hole that we designated for that.
Oh, really? I think he got a little bit full.
And David Ayers, I asked David, I said, which hole on this course frustrated Larry most? And that's the one I wanted to put the sign on.
That was
emotional.
really nice.
So then, John Subers brought me the sign back because I wanted to give it to Lisa, who still lives in town, by the way. And she wasn't home when I went to give it to her, so I planted it in the sent her a picture of it, and she replied back, "It's Larry, my anniversary."
Oh,
Wow.
Think you had a little pull too?
Yeah.
So, well, anyway, that was fun. There's a lot going on in this city right now, and if you're not paying attention, you're going to miss your opportunity to, speaking to the public, to have your voice heard and your opinion heard, possibly influence some thoughts up here amongst us. There's new housing going on, changes to our LDC and development code. Your workshop yesterday and the decision was a prime example. We had hardly anybody.
Yeah, you posted something on
Really, something of that magnitude. Would have loved to have seen much more public participation.
I was shocked that we had basically.
Yeah. And the fate of our fireworks and our events, there's a lot going on right now. So if you haven't already, sign up for email alerts as to things that are going on amongst us, the commission. This is our third meeting this week.
That's why we're a little silly.
All right, I'll end it.
We're silly there.
All right. Mr. Manning.
Okay, I'll be short. I want to thank the police and fire departments for the beach food. They thought they had a very good turnout. I got there about 20 minutes into it, and they said they were over 60 at that point. Kids having fun to the stage. And I'll echo the chief's thank you to all those who donated and money towards it. There's a Star Events group meeting this morning. All the chairs are taken, as far as being, who's going to decorate things, that's great. There's a couple more ones, which you'll hear about. And Johnny already got me.
Do tell.
Yes, do you want me to go on the record with that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I told Johnny that those chairs are public property, and that if people wanted to take them and decorate them and surprise everyone, they would have to check them out and return them. We were not going to deliver them.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I said, think of it like a rental car. The rental car belongs to the company. You're leasing it for a period of time and bring it back in the same condition. So that's basically, when it's all said and done. So that's basically what he agreed to. And I said, Tom Gillen is our custodian of that property, and people have to sign in and out with him.
Good. And the speakers, so the music we did. Okay, that's the next thing.
Okay.
Yes, it came here.
Okay.
Okay. And William, I have to thank you for that night's meeting. That it was so organized and all the right people there. So just want to say thank you. It's a big project with a lot involved, and you just had it all easy peasy it looks like.
It's almost like you've done a sport.
So that's
I remember seeing that.
Just a couple of things. The environmental study is being worked on at Park. Once we have that back in hand and everything looks good, we will come back to the board to have the project rebid, hoping to have that accomplished by the end of this year because the project has to be completed by September of next year. And then my second question, I have a question, and I'm not sure who to ask. I think it's Commissioner Brown. Where are we putting up the signage at the parking lots? Is it you? I know that.
I'm gonna do it mine because we need money.
I need park money.
No private. The signs are actually designed and ready to go, but they need funding for it.
Okay.
That's through the, private creators.
Okay. Are you working on obtaining that funding or?
No, we just have to come to the board and request it.
Okay. Okay.
I
Do you
think,
have any idea how much you're looking?
I have no idea because we haven't had a, meeting with private creators for a couple months.
Right.
The mayor's also on the CAC. But I did see an email this week, so I think it's coming pretty soon, and one of the members actually went to the sign company that has those, that information, the design and stuff. I promise I'll bring it back next time, and I'll probably come back with the request.
Okay. Sounds good.
Could that be, a TVC cost? Untitled.
Actually, I think I talked to the director.
Yes, as a matter of fact, he was spearheading a lot of that, getting the cars to the right spots and then like the whole concept.
I'll explore that, check in with Louis. More free money. Maybe I'll get Home Depot. I'll get Lowe's. I'll get Lowe's on this.
Yeah, tell Lowe's that Home Depot wants to.
It'd be, if you have a veterans parking lot, they'll do it.
This year. That'll be better.
Alright, I don't have anything, and we have our second round of public comments. So any members of the public wish to speak on the meeting, this would probably be the best way to word it. Absolutely, come on up. You can start with your name and address, please. A little stiff.
Zia Schultz, we're 304.
301.
301, North Street. I number the houses. Anyway, I heard you talking about finding out all these things going on. Where do I find all this? I've kind of gone to the city's website, but I don't see an events calendar.
There is an events calendar.
There's an events. Is everything in there? It's not real clear where I find all this good stuff.
Are you talking about agendas or?
Well, Rick was talking about things happening.
Oh, you look at the agendas, I think that's right.
Yeah.
So if I'll give you
Is there a Facebook? Is there just,
no, well, there's some there. Once if you'll give me your phone number, I'll call you tomorrow and walk you through some of it.
That's it. Any other members of the public wish to speak?
We're all caught up 2740. I want to thank you all. I know you had a rough week. Not a rough week, but you put a lot of time in, and
thank you so
a lot of
much.
people don't appreciate what you do, but I do. Thank you. And on that note, I'm leaving.
Commissioner Grant.
Any other members of the public wish to speak? You can come up, name and address.
James Sherman, 1916 South Flagler Avenue. Just had a quick question. I think it was last week you guys mentioned about the $315,000 grant money that was going to be going out through the CARES Act or the American Rescue Act. Just was curious to see if there'd be some sort of public disclosure to that, so that the public can see exactly where that money went to ensure some sort of accountability. Not to say that the businesses would mishandle that money, but I knew there was a mention about the continuity of operations plan. So kind of harden those businesses to prepare for the event of a hurricane or any sort of event like that. So would there be, I guess, specific instructions for them to utilize that money, or would it be, this is how you use it? Or and again, would there be a ledger? Because nothing against that organization. That's a lot of money to give an organization to then say, okay, here's $315,000. Send it out as you see fit, and I was just curious about that as far as accountability goes to that money.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and there is city manager. You want to take that? I don't think there's any talk of the post audit on that. I don't know.
Oh yes, sir.
Oh,
it'll be audited, sir. Oh yes. Let me just take that question quickly. It's a portion of the $2.5 million allocated to the city in the American Rescue Act funds. There's a complete plan, it should be posted on our website. Is the plan out there on our website?
I have not done it. Janelle's been out her last.
She's been out sick.
I'm not sure right now. I can't answer.
We'll make sure it's posted to our website, but it's basically a portion of that plan, and we have until December of 2024 to spend funds. We are waiting on the U.S. government, U.S. Treasury federal guidance before we finalize everything, so we haven't spent one penny of that money yet. And I would suggest we don't until we know the guidance for sure. So it'll be a little while. In the meantime, we are working with county IT staff to make sure that there is a website where all the instructions are posted, and it'll be announced multiple times, and there'll be guidance published, and then the MOU that the city entered with Flagler Strong, which would be the not-for-profit administrating the $300,000. They will have all of these guidelines published. They will have the applications automated, and their board will be subject to sunshine, and they will be trained. And if they have questions, they have to come to me. And if I can't answer the questions, I'm going to call the U.S. government. Well, the state of Florida first, and then the U.S. government. So there is going to be plenty of checks and controls. Nobody's handing anybody any money without our say-so, and this is all laid out in the plan.
Good question, man.
Any other members of the public? All right, close public comment.
That's it, adjourn. Is that next?
That's next.
All right, we are adjourned. You can get from, well,